I was diagnosed last year in 2020 with autism. I don't think anyone around me would have ever considered that possibility. I've been what others would call successful for the 31 years of my life. In school, I was at the top of my class. I was what looked like very social. I was in a lot of leadership positions. Teachers always called on me to help, to lead group projects, and I didn't appear to have any learning disabilities. I excelled in band, I excelled in academics, I excelled in extracurriculars, I had a lot of friends, and I found myself with this diagnosis. What do we do when a diagnosis doesn't line up with what we feel like our life represents? If you are also autistic but undiagnosed, you might also feel like I did, in that I have constantly been searching for truth. I've been searching for psychological truth. I love studying psychology. I love reading about the mind, about the brain, and I just naturally gravitate towards that section anytime I'm in a bookstore. Since I was in college, probably before then, I've just been fascinated with how we make decisions and how people think and how people learn. And I think I've just always known deep down that my brain was very different than anybody else's brain. I think Hannah Gadsby says it really well when she says she has more knowledge than she'd ever be able to share. I'm paraphrasing what she said, but that really jumped out to me a lot. Like, there's so much in here that I never would be able to communicate. It's not that I don't know how, it's like words don't exist to communicate the knowledge that I have in my head, because that's how different I feel like my brain is from everyone else. I feel like I almost think in my own language, and I don't know how to describe it other than that. But let me tell you how I got to this diagnosis. In elementary school, in high school, I dealt with a lot of anxiety. I dealt with depression. I was constantly stressed and worried. I remember that very vividly. I got sick a lot, all different types of sickness, and I've struggled with autoimmune disease since I was in second grade. My autoimmune disease that I've dealt with is alopecia, and I have other videos about that and more coming soon. But just in general, anxiety and stress related issues. In college, I sought counseling because my stress was so intense that I couldn't manage it. It was kind of written off as like, oh, it's just college, you're taking a lot of hours, you're taking hard classes, here's how we can manage your stress. And that was kind of the end of it. I got married to my high school sweetheart. We started dating when I was 16. I think that's maybe been a crucial part of helping me find so much success, is that I had this really stable network, not only of my husband, my boyfriend, fiance, husband, but also a close group of friends. Whenever I was social, I was with the same people all the time. And so I kind of got used to that, and I didn't really seek out new social situations. I got married at a young age, got my first job, and I soon started having this anxiety and this stress start creeping back up that I just didn't know what to do with. It was very intense. It felt like I could never quite adequately describe it to anybody else, because it was just being written off as like, oh, this is just normal stress. This is normal, what's part of life. We just need to figure out how to slow down, take it easy, yoga, meditate, all this stuff. I've tried all of it, you guys. I've tried all of it. Eventually, it led me to counseling again, where the counselor more or less diagnosed me with OCD, which seemed to fit at the time, but still felt a little bit off. I sat with that for a while, went back to therapy a couple of years later. I still needed help. Like, can somebody please help me figure out why my brain is so different? Still couldn't find the words, still couldn't figure out a way to explain it. I just was praying for somebody to understand me. And so through more counseling and more therapy, I learned the term highly sensitive person, or HSP. There's a whole wealth of information that you can learn about there. I think the best author on that subject is Elaine Aron. I studied all about HSPs. Okay, I'm HSP, that helps me make sense of it. This counselor also felt like I had a lot of ADHD symptoms. Researched that, seemed to fit. At this point, the OCD kind of felt like it wasn't fitting as well anymore, and I was kind of sticking with HSP ADHD. So I dealt with that. I got on medication to manage my ADHD, and it seemed to help, although there were drawbacks. That's a whole nother video. A couple years later, I find myself, okay, this is still not really where I'm at. It doesn't seem to fit what's going on in my brain. Maybe a little bit, we're getting closer. I feel like each step of the process was like one more puzzle piece falling into place. One day when I was 31, I had a colleague over to my house who in passing mentioned that her daughter was diagnosed with autism. Her daughter was someone that I went to college with, very smart. I saw a lot of myself in her, and she seemed normal. So I was very intrigued by this. As I am with all mental health issues, I just want to learn everything and try to figure out my brain. She said, you know, one of the things that set us off is that she has a lot of copy and paste behaviors. And I said, copy and paste behaviors? It was one of those things where You know, when somebody says something and you just perk up and you're like, I am supposed to have this information. I knew that that phrase was very important to me. So she started explaining copy and paste behaviors. Well, when she's in social environments, she seems to mirror what other people are doing as a way of making it through the conversation. And I said, okay, that's interesting. And inside I'm thinking, I do that, is that not normal? I do that, is that not normal? You know, going through all the situations in my head that I had felt these similar ways. She goes on to talk about other characteristics that kind of went under the radar, how she preferred to spend time alone. She had very deep, strong interest in certain subjects. She had some difficulty maintaining friendships and just seemed to feel kind of othered and didn't seem like she had a place for herself. Because I'm autistic, in that conversation, I was half listening to my colleague friend and half just like wheels turning in my head. Like, I cannot wait till you leave my house so I can research the crap out of this topic, because never before, you know, I had researched so many other mental health things, but never before had I considered autism. She left and I read the entire internet until I was satisfied and had a description and understanding of what autism was, how it's less diagnosed in females. I took all of the tests on the internet that there are. I didn't even tell my husband about it for a while. I tell my husband everything. I've kind of got this feeling before, especially all the therapy that I've gone through. It's like, hey babe, I'm OCD. Hey babe, I'm ADHD. Have you heard of an HSP? Let me tell you about it. And so now I found myself thinking, oh great, I'm gonna say, hey babe, I think I'm autistic. And it's just gonna be the, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back, where he's like, oh, you're overthinking all of this, which is the last thing that an autistic person wants to hear. You're overthinking this. It's true, we are overthinking because our brains are different. I took all the tests until I was sure that I was sure that I was sure. Again, kind of like a light bulb moment with a copy and paste phrase. I just felt it in my soul that this resonated with me and that this described my place in the world. And so I told my husband, after I had thoroughly researched the topic, and we worked through it together and decided to pursue a professional diagnosis. Once I received my official diagnosis, it was such a gift. And even before the official diagnosis, just trusting in my gut that this was who I was, it gave me so much freedom to take more time for myself, to say no to more social outings, to stim more. That was one of the things that kind of surprised me, is that stimming doesn't have to be stereotypical hand flapping or anything like that. My stimming is clacking my teeth where nobody can see. My stimming is doing this with my fingers, or like, I also think that I stim through dancing. I'm just like constantly moving. So I just feel more freedom to do that. I have fidget toys everywhere, my purse, in my car, in the kitchen, in the junk drawer. There's a whole video series coming on the ways that it's changed my life. This is my son, Cooper. He decided he needed some cuddles. Females are underdiagnosed because we are more capable of masking socially. The resources and research that we have had up to this point in time are primarily directed towards males because it presents differently. It can be a little more obvious. I'm trying not to speak in stereotypes or generalizations, though the tide is turning. It's a very exciting time to be a female autistic person because there are so many more resources being created. There's so many books, there's so many podcasts, there's so many Instagram accounts, TikTok accounts, all incredible. I'll try to include links to those resources in the description. Tell me in the comments if you think you might be on the spectrum and why, and make sure to check out the resources that I post. I'm going to share my favorite autism quiz online called the Ask Me Quiz. It's very thorough and it's a great way to figure out if pursuing a diagnosis might be worth it to you. Being an autistic person is definitely a challenge. It's a neurotypical world and it can be hard to manage our place in it, but overall I feel like there's so many strengths and wonderful things about it, and I can't wait to share more with y'all. Thanks, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. It's the best way for me to continue creating free content for you. And also in the comments, be sure to let me know if you have any other ideas for upcoming video topics.